Okay, let's take a look at discipline plans. Part of your action plan is going to revolve around trying to figure out discipline in the classroom. And you know, a lot of our educational experts will tell us that there are three important student behaviors to teach on the first day of school. One is what those discipline procedures are going to be, or talk about discipline in the classroom, what you're going to accept versus what you're not going to accept, and then build those into both procedures and routines. Okay? And Harry Wong tells us that if you do not have a plan, you are planning to fail. So that's why probably the most important exercise I think I will have you do here in the first 8 weeks of your experience is to develop that action plan. Because I want you to have something concrete as you begin a teaching experience. So your discipline plan is going to include both the 3 parts: class rules, rewards, and penalties, or as we've decided, consequences. Okay? And I apologize, you can't see this very well. But let's take a look at rules about rules. The function of a rule is to prevent or encourage behavior by clearly stating student expectations. All right? If you clearly state what those expectations are, you're going to be okay. There's going to be general rules that you're going to have, and there's going to be specific rules. A general rule might be where you want kids to respect other kids. A specific rule is you want kids to be on time for class. All right? I think you know, I think it's in Buffalo where they have the sign right by the office, in by 8, you're never late. Okay, and they've got it posted really big. Well, when kids walk in that building every day, what do they see? They see that sign. All right, they know how important it is at that elementary school to be on time. All right, do parents see that? Absolutely. All right, so that message is being sent that in order for us to start class on time, we need your child here, we need you to help us get them there, and so on and so forth. Creating class rules. All right, how many class rules should you have? What do you think? Well, I see this, I see this. Somebody give me a number.
5 or less.
Yeah, yeah. Don't have too many rules, all right? You should have about 3 to 5 rules. You start getting too many rules and you're going to lose the kids, all right? So never have more than 5, and I'd say have between 3 and 5. You need to state the rules positively. Don't be negative in your statements. State the rules easy for you and your students to remember. That's why long sentences are out. Okay, be short, to the point. All right, state it, get off of it, move on. Post your rules in the classroom, visible for all. A lot of teachers neglect to do this. All right. At Muscatine High School, we asked our teachers to post what we call the principles and agreements. And these were principles and agreements that we as a staff all decided that we could live by. And then we in turn asked our staff to live by these rules. And then our staff in turn asked our students to live by these rules. But they were posted in the classroom. So every time a student walked into a class, they knew where they could see the principles and the agreements. And then we ask teachers to enforce it. All right? Because that piece of paper is only as good as the enforcement of those classroom rules. All right? Be able to enforce the rules consistently. The biggest problem, one of the big problems in education is lack of consistency. You have to be perceived by parents, by students, as being fair and consistent in doling out the class rules. And remember, rules deal with behavior, not procedures. All right? There's a difference. There's a difference. Questions on class rules? Those are some suggestions as you begin to build your action plan. Let's take a look at rewards. All right? Harry tells us the best reward is the satisfaction of a job well done. Well, that sounds good. All right? But are your kids going to buy that all the time? No. No. Okay? So, part of it is true. But rewards, such as the examples that I give you up on the overhead or on the PowerPoint, are pretty powerful. Praise kids. Praise them up. Okay? Make sure that you're praising them in front of their peers. Okay? Because all of the kids will want that type of praise from time to time. Okay? Can it be false praise? No. Be careful about false praise. Because kids are smart. They can read you like a book. They can tell when you're pretending. They can tell when you're faking it. And they can tell when you're sincere and you're real. So if you are praising a child, praise them for something of value that you liked, that you saw, that has value. Okay? A note card home. I call them good note cards or good news cards. All right? Send those kinds of things home with your kids so that parents know. Student of the day, student of the week, student of the month. I think I've seen all of you at one point or another have kind of tangible rewards in your classrooms already. Post the work, just like we talked about when we were visiting classrooms. Certificates of honor, coupons. There's a lot of different ways to reward your kids, but it's important that, that you do it positively. It's very important that you do it on a regular basis. Penalties. Be careful that you don't have too many penalties. All right? Those penalties are very, very important as well. Timeouts, demerits or fine, detention are oftentimes used. Assignment to right ways to correct the problem. Now be careful with that one. All right? Because when you use writing as a punishment, what happens sometimes? They begin to despise writing. And that's not the point. All right? So be careful. Now, asking a student to write how they would correct a problem, I think is reasonable and fair. But don't ask them to write a full-page essay as why they did what they did and all that kind of stuff. Because that just turns them off. And some kids will rebel and they won't do it. And now you're into, now what are you going to do? So remember that punishment or that penalty needs to be fair and respectful of the student. All right? Being last to leave, loss of rewards, exclusion of class participation. Also be careful about recess as a punishment, or excluding recess as a punishment. All right? When I was in grade school, recess was everything. And if I lost recess, you know, I began to despise the classroom. Believe it or not, I used to have a real temper when I was a youngster, okay? And I was in a 5th grade classroom, all right, in Larned, Kansas, all right. It was the only elementary school that was shaped like a sunflower, because that was our state flower. Okay, in Kansas, the state flower is the sunflower, and each classroom was a petal. It really was cool, all right. And in the middle of the school was a gymnasium, and it was a round gymnasium. Okay, I mean, it was cool, all right. So I'm out on recess, and we're playing football, and the teacher's pet decides to come in and tell the teacher that I bit him during the football game. Okay, now what you need to know is we were playing with helmets, and you got face masks on, so it's extremely difficult to bite kids with a face mask. But anyway, and just to let you know, I didn't bite the kid. All right, I would admit it if I bit the kid. I might have punched him, but I wouldn't have bitten him. But anyway, so the teacher had a demerit system. All right, so the teacher automatically, without getting my side of the story, gives me 100 demerits. All right, 100 demerits. One demerit equaled the times table all the way through. Okay, so as I'm not proud of this, but in the conversation, and she gives me this in front of my peers in the class, okay, on top of it. And so I decide to become defiant. And so I look at her and I say, I don't care if you give me 1,000 demerits, I'm not doing it. And I turn my chair. We had those swivel chairs with the desk, you know, and all that kind of cool stuff. All right? So lo and behold, I turned my chair away from the blackboard, and one of the kids, one of my friends sitting there says, you better look at the blackboard. Because I turned and looked at the blackboard, and sure enough, I'd gone from 100 demerits to 1,000 demerits. Okay? I didn't see recess probably for a month. All right? Because back then, parents supported without question. And my folks said, she gave you 1,000, you got 1,000. Okay? So guess what I thought about my 5th grade experience? Was it a positive one or a negative one? It was a negative one. It was a negative one, and it was all based on that one experience. All right? Now, had the teacher lightened up a little bit down the road and said, Bob, I think you've learned your lesson. We're going to cut it in half. I probably would have thought she was the greatest thing since sliced bread. But she didn't. She stayed with it. I did the whole 1,000. I never saw the light of day forever. And my 5th grade experience was not a real good one. All right? Now, I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but I'm just saying be careful when you dole out penalties. Okay? You know what she did? She doled out that penalty. Was she in full control, or was she upset? Upset. She was upset. All right? She was upset. Don't dole out consequences when you're upset, because you'll have a tendency to go too far. The other thing I tell you is talk to the kids at the beginning of the school. Empower them a little bit on consequences and talk to them about that. You know, one of the things that I think you're going to find is that sometimes kids are harder on themselves than the adults are. So when you're setting up classroom rules, don't be afraid to talk to the kids about what do they think is fair. Okay? We're going to try to establish this rule. Does everybody think it's fair? Why not? Let's modify it to make it fair so everybody can live with it. Can you live with it? Yeah, Johnny can live with it. Sally can live with it over there too. So those are good ways to bring the kids in to that whole process and bringing about better management of the class. The kids feel good about it, you feel good about it, and everybody can operate within that environment successfully. Enlist parent support. That sometimes is neglected. As a matter of fact, I'll say it's neglected a lot when we're setting up classrooms and classroom rules. Send a copy of your discipline plan home to the parents. How many of your cooperating teachers did that? Okay, good, good. I didn't see some hands, so that's one thing you want to make sure. Remember what we said, should there be any surprises? No. Shouldn't be any surprises in the classroom. There shouldn't be any surprises at home. Make positive parent contact before you need their assistance with a problem. One of the things that I would strongly encourage you to do as a first-year teacher is take it upon yourself, call home, introduce yourself. And if nothing else, say how excited you are to have Beth in your classroom. That's all you need. 20-second conversation. I don't want to take any more of your time, but I just wanted to introduce myself and let you know how excited I was to be your son or daughter's first grade teacher. And I look forward to partnering with you in the future. Have a great night. Okay? When you get off the phone, you're going to feel good. That parent is going to go, whoa, this is great. All right? Now I know my son or daughter's first grade teacher. I've met them on the phone, whatever. Okay? Most of you will have, at the elementary level, you'll have no more than 22 to 25 kids. You can do that in 2 or 3 nights, can't you? Okay? And it will come back to help you sixfold. Trust me.
For secondary, would you just send home a letter? Because in secondary...
I wouldn't. I'd call.
So if you had a social studies class and you had like 5 different classes...
150 kids.
You would call each parent?
I'd make an effort to do that, yes. Or as I work into the first week, I've begun to identify certain kids that may need that positive reinforcement. Okay? I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I called every one of my parents for the 23 years I was in the classroom, but I called an awful lot.
Okay? Just look for the students that you think that might need more positive reinforcement.
Yeah, develop a strategy that you're comfortable with. Okay? But make it positive, not just negative. Too often we wait until something negatively happens and then we call home and then we wonder why parents are on the defensive. Well, you got to remember, that parent loves that child. Okay? They're going to defend that child probably to the death. You need to understand that. But if I call home initially and set the table, so to speak, then I might have a better conversation with that parent when things go sour. That's all we're saying. So it's all about setting myself up for success versus failure. I don't want to have that tough conversation. And when I have to have that tough conversation, I want it to go better than I had hoped for. Okay, does that make sense? Parents can be one of your biggest allies in managing the student's behavior. And I would tell you this, both as a teacher and as an administrator, that the negative phone calls are very minimal that you have to have with parents. Most parents will support you very, very well and successfully. I would say out of 10, that 1 out of 10 phone calls is going to be probably a conversation where the parent may not decide to support you as the classroom teacher. But 9 others will. So hang your hat on that. Okay? And know that you're going to have that tough conversation from time to time. That's part of teaching and learning. Let's take a look at procedures and routines. The number one problem in the classroom is not discipline. It is the lack of procedures and routines. And I would agree with that wholeheartedly. All right? You got to make sure that you have good, solid procedures, good, solid routines, again, so that there's no second guessing. A procedure is simply a method or process of how things are to be done in the classroom. Procedures answer the question, what do I do when this happens? That's what a procedure is. Here are some classroom procedures that you need to make sure become routine. The beginning of a period. Do your students know what to do? When class starts, do they know what to do? And should they know what to do every day? And the answer is yes. Now, can it differ every day? Sure it can. But you need to make sure that they know what do they need to do when class starts. Can they kick back and relax while you take attendance? Because if that happens, then you've just wasted about 5 minutes of class time. Can't do that. So while I'm taking attendance, they should be doing something academic. Don't care what it is. Might be a review, could be a quotation like we talked about last week, can be a number of different things. But make sure that they understand that when the bell rings, boom, you're mine. I only got 47 minutes, or I only have 20 minutes. I need to get this done, and you need to be there with me. All right? Quieting a class. Do students know right now? How many of you can tell me, since you've taken over the class, do students know how you will quiet them? Raise your hand. Great. How do they know? Did you instruct them? Absolutely. Good. Okay, they have to be instructed on how you want them to quiet down. Remember what we said day one. Never assume. Never assume. Okay? And when you establish the procedures, should you assume that they always remember them? No. Do you need to reinforce them from time to time? Absolutely. Maybe even on a daily basis sometimes. But never assume that they know how to. Students seeking help. Do students know how to get your attention? There needs to be a procedure and a routine for that. Movement of students and papers. Do students know how to move about the room? Do they even know how to pass papers in? You got to teach them how to do that. All right? I was in a classroom this afternoon where the kids knew where the math box was, and at the end of the lesson, they just put the math assignment right in the box, and they're good to go. Great. Okay? All the teacher had to say was, put your assignment in the math box. That's all she had to say. And the kids got up and did it. Okay? And did a pretty good job of that. Okay? And then end of a period. Do students know who or what will dismiss them at the end of the period? Should a bell ever dismiss students? No. No. Who should dismiss students? You should. You should. Okay, here are some procedures that as you begin to develop your action plan, I want you to consider. Okay? Take a look at those. How about when a student finishes work early? Do you have a procedure for that? If not, you need to develop one. All right? Otherwise, they sit and they waste time. The major fire, tornado, lockdown, severe weather, all of that. Are you ready to prepare them for that? You need to have a conversation. What do I do if there's a tornado? Carrie, were you part of that? Where the tornado went through Muscatine and we had to sit till 5 o'clock? Yeah. When the tornado, what was that, 2007? 2007, when the tornado went through Muscatine, it actually went 100 yards from the high school. And we had to bring all of the students down in the hallways. We had to seat them, and the warning went out at like 2:45. Okay? And we had to stay there till, I think it was 5:30 in the afternoon. And I will tell you that our student body was absolutely fantastic. And only one reason and one reason only. Kids knew the procedure, they knew the severity of the situation, and they were totally cooperative. I wish I could tell you the same about parents. It was unbelievable. Okay? We had parents sitting out in their cars that refused to come in, and we were waving them in for safety. They wouldn't come in. One father came in and wanted his daughter right now, and he was going to grab her no matter what. Well, you know what? We don't know where your daughter is. We know she's safe. We know she's in the building, but I can't tell you where she's at right now. Okay? But the kids were absolutely fantastic. Why? Because we practiced the procedure. We practiced the routine. We told the kids that if the alarm sounds, take it seriously. And luckily, nobody was hurt. But that tornado went 100 yards from the high school. We were darn lucky it didn't destroy. Okay? Could have been devastating. All right? So those are just some ideas to consider. All right? You must teach procedures. That's what I've been talking about. Explain, rehearse, so practice them, and reinforce them on a constant basis. If you'll do that, then your classroom management will be pretty good. Okay, and I want to leave you with our discussion on classroom management with 4 things that I think are somewhat important. Okay? And this is kind of a wrap-up philosophically of what we've been talking about for the last 2 seminar sessions. I want you to maintain a professional relationship with students and fellow colleagues. All right? That above anything else is critically important. You are now the professional in education. All right? You need to make sure that you foster that professionalism as a young educator. All right? I want you to be fair and consistent with students regardless of who they are. All right? One of our sessions, I've made a decision that one of our sessions we're going to take a look at students in poverty, because how we teach students in poverty is critical. But it's very, very important that you develop yourself as an educator, you develop the procedures and the routines to be fair and consistent no matter who the child is. The worst thing that can happen to you is that parents or students in your class determine that you are treating certain students differently because of either who they are or where they come from or whatever. If you have 22 students, whose responsibility is it to teach those 22 students? It's yours. You have been entrusted with those kids. You now are their parent during the school day. Take that seriously. It's very, very important that you understand that. Use class time wisely to avoid misbehaviors. That's really what it boils down to. How you structure your class. You know, we started our conversation a week ago by talking about those teachers that we could walk down the hallway, and some teachers have great classrooms and other teachers it looks like all Hades is breaking loose. Well, the reason is because they don't understand time management, they don't understand organization, maybe they don't care, don't know. But it's all about how you structure your classroom. And the more effective you structure that classroom, the less discipline that you'll have. Okay? Statistics tell us that about 1/3 of you, this is a staggering statistic, about 1/3 of you that start your educational careers will get out of it after the first 3 years. And you know what they list as the number 1 reason? Classroom management. They didn't know how to handle the kids, and they didn't know how to teach effectively. What we're trying to do is we're trying to give you some tools so that you become that teacher that teaches into the 5th, 10th, 20th year in a long-lasting professional career. Okay? But it really does start with classroom management. Take an interest in students. You heard me talk about this weeks ago. Outside of the classroom. Find time to take an interest in kids' extracurricular activities. I was in a classroom, I think a week ago, where the teacher was talking about, or the student teacher I asked a question about some of the kids, and she could tell me who was in the soccer. And they were going to a Little League soccer match that night to support some of the kids and all that kind of stuff. That will come back, and it just shows those children that you care about them other than just in the classroom. All right, so find time to do that. Do you get paid for that? No, you don't. You don't. All right. Are you on the clock? No, you're not. All right. Are you forced to do that? No, you're not. But it will come back to really help you. And then the last thing I want to leave you with are those resources. Okay. And again, you're going to get that PowerPoint, so you don't need to write that down. But I do really want to encourage you to start that professional resource library where you're getting good tips on teaching and learning. All right. We've come to the end of our discussions on classroom management. I hope it's been valuable for you. I hope once you get this PowerPoint, you'll be able to review it, develop a good solid action plan. Because we're out of time and we didn't get to the EdTPA today, if it's all right with all of you, I want, and this is critical, we're going to use next seminar for nothing but EdTPA. Okay? I'm going to give you time to develop, work on the EdTPA process. So it's critical that you bring in whatever materials you need to bring in to be successful during that seminar time, because it will be the only time I can give you that length of time for the whole process. And my hope is that most of you can either get completed or be on the path towards completion by the end of seminar next week. Now, does that mean you should neglect it between now and next week? No. Keep working on it. Keep developing it. It will give us a chance. It will give us a chance to collaborate and network with each other on how each of us are doing on the process. So, questions, comments, criticisms, concerns. 2 things next week. You owe me an action plan, and bring your EdTPA materials and work, laptop and handbook, templates, all that kind of stuff. Okay? I don't want any excuses. Oh, I forgot. Okay? All right. On that note, I hope you have a great rest of your night. Have a great week, and I'll see you soon. Teresa, you want to do a post?